Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Reason We Learn. I'm Deb Philman, mom, homeschooler, educator. Today, I want to talk about the term dismantling. You'll see it a lot, you'll hear it a lot. You might even read it a lot in your kids' curriculum materials or the descriptions thereof. Um, I most often hear it in terms of teachers talking about dismantling curriculum, dismantling or decolonizing curriculum, basically taking things apart. And I wonder if parents hear this word or read this word and stop to think about asking the teachers, the schools, the administrators, the people who are using the whole dismantling term, why? So, in other words, they might get a reason like we're decolonizing it because it's oppressive, or we're dismantling the old ways of doing things because they're oppressive. But nobody seems to demand proof. I don't really see a lot of pushback directly until after it's already been implemented. The websites have been updated. The kids are coming home with assignments. You're looking at it going, huh? And or maybe not, or maybe you just feel like maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, and the school's the school and they're the experts and they know what they're doing. But I don't really see too many parents saying, wait a second, why are you fixing something without telling me exactly why it was broken, how it was broken, how it was oppressive? Why do we need to dismantle it? Usually you take things apart to rebuild them a different way, or to replace them with something, to remove them completely. I mean, we don't dismantle things and just leave the rubble sitting there, right? We take things apart and then we replace them with something else. So, whenever you see dismantling or decolonizing, understand that that's what they're doing. They're really saying replacing. And I think they use the term dismantling or decolonizing to add a negative connotation to what was there, but without any obligation to explain what it was. At most, you might get, well, this is mostly representing a white point of view. So we have to decolonize it. They were colonizers. Every white person who ever produced anything in American history, or even in culture in general around the world, every white person who ever produced anything that at one point was valued enough to put it into the curriculum was a colonizer. Every person, really? Isaac Newton was a colonizer? Albert Einstein was a colonizer? I mean, how far do we want to go with this? So that argument doesn't really hold water. It's white people, okay? Not every white person was a colonizer. There were plenty of white people who were themselves escaping tyranny in another country. Scientists, mathematicians, even writers. I mean, Ayn Rand, for example, had to escape Soviet Russia to come here. She was an autodidact. She taught herself all kinds of languages, taught herself to speak English so well. She wrote novels, quite challenging novels, and she created an entire philosophy in English. I wouldn't call her a colonizer. So that doesn't work. So now what? What else are you dismantling? There needs to be an argument made. Somebody needs to challenge these things and say, what was it exactly that wasn't working? And are you literally saying that ideas are good or bad based on the color of the skin of the person who had the idea? Is that what you're telling us? Because that's the impression I'm getting. When I look at descriptions of these curriculum materials, that's the impression I'm getting. They're saying this is bad. It's evidence of we need to decolonize, we need to dismantle because white people came up with it, white people wrote it, it's too white, and that by definition makes it bad. Flip that around. Imagine saying that about anything black or brown. Imagine removing things from the curriculum purely because brown people produce them. Can you even imagine that? I can't. I can't. I think we have for decades added things to the curriculum because the people who produced them were brown. We've been doing that. We had the Black History Month, which I think it's a little silly to have a month for Black history. Even there shouldn't be Black history. There should be history, and we talk about the contributions of people who made contributions regardless of what the race was. And obviously when you do that, and especially if you take some time to make sure you are inclusive and you're not leaving people out, because in the past that probably was done. So now you're not leaving anyone out who made a major contribution, but it also doesn't mean you're including people who really didn't make a major contribution. There aren't too many white people who are talked about who made eensy beensy minor contributions that really were like, it wasn't really that important. Most of them were pretty important contributions. They just so happen to be white people who made them. So I'm sure there are black people who made pretty major contributions, just as there were Chinese people and there were Jews and there were all kinds of people who made major contributions to the history of this country and the world, and we should talk about all of them. But I do think we need to place a value on what the contribution was. I think we need to teach our kids that not everything and every person is equal. There's not. We don't all equally contribute to everything. We just don't. We contribute different things in different arenas, and dismantling the curriculum solely based on race is nothing more than just destroying something, because you're not looking at the quality of the ideas. You're just looking at who made them, who produced them. And with that, I bring you to this tweet. This is from Wiley Psychology, whatever that is. Call for papers for Journal of Research on Adolescence special issue. Oppression is as American as apple pie, learning about and confronting whiteness, privilege, and oppression. Submit an abstract by 15th of December. More details. So they're actually asking people to go out and take the position that oppression is as American as apple pie. Oppression. This is part of the whole dismantling thing. And it starts with dismantling the idea that America is a good place. We have to start with the premise that America is a bad place. America is inherently oppressive. And I want to say to them, compared to what? Because it does matter. It is relative. We have people from all over the world trying to come here. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. Are we teaching our children that this is such an oppressive place that they don't realize relative to the rest of the world? It most certainly is not. So given that, this is a lie. It's as oppressive as apple pie? Really? That means it's inherent in the American experiment that we're oppressive. That's just false. That's false. And if deconstructing and dismantling is going to mean lying, it's going to mean tearing down ideas that we have about ourselves, our country, ourselves as individuals. Well, whiteness, it's inherently bad. Look, confronting whiteness and privilege, oppression, they're all mentioned together. If that's what that means, then what they're saying is tear yourself down, tear down your heritage, tear down everything that could possibly be good about you, about where you come from, about the country in which you live. Let's tear it all down and replace it with what exactly? Because unless you know what you're starting with and you take it apart, how do you know you're not going to replace it with something equally bad? How do you know? Just tearing something down doesn't replace it with something good. You have to first define exactly what was bad, exactly what was oppressive. And whiteness isn't going to cut it unless you intend to remove all the white people. So if what makes America inherently oppressive as apple pie is whiteness, what are they saying? Get rid of the white people? Because we're already getting rid of ideas produced by white people. Isn't it just a hop, skip, and a jump to get rid of the white people? I mean, I don't really see the giant leap from one thought to the other. Is that what we want to teach our children? Because that's the message they're probably going to get. And so here we have this comment from, and I'm going to mess her name up, so I'm not going to say it. I apologize. How about contributing something meaningful to the world and teaching truth, wisdom, and knowledge? Destruction is the root of the lazy coward. And she's responding to this comment. My job as an academic is to question, challenge, dismantle, and disrupt, and to teach my students to do the same. Otherwise, what's the point? Well, the point is you have to first teach your students what is. And you need to do it objectively. You need to do it honestly. You need to teach them the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it, but the good too. And then you can set about discussing how do we minimize the bad. There's bad in every culture, right? There's good in every culture. I would argue, actually, there is more good in our culture, in Western culture, than there is in any other culture. Yes, I will go out on a limb and say that. I will also go out on a limb and say there's more good about this country than there is in many other countries, most other Western countries. And I think I could make a pretty good argument for that. But I would make that case And then I would also say, and here's what's not so awesome and what has not been so great in history. And what do you think we can do about the parts that aren't so good, where we didn't live up to our values and our ideas? And how might we fix that? But we've got to start with, what is the ideal? What are the values that we do adhere to? How do we? What makes us successful in that area? And how do we bring the rest of our society up to that level? You don't just go in and say, let's tear it all down. And you certainly don't do it by race. And that's what I see happening. That's what I see happening when you have things like oppression is as American as apple pie, learning about and confronting whiteness, privilege, and oppression like that's inherently bad. You are destroying for the sake of destroying. And that's nihilism. And that is hopeless and pointless. And you're going to teach students that their job is to look at what is and tear it apart. That's no way to build a life, because you are going to have a bunch of really ignorant people going out into the world looking to find fault with it. So in addition to being a recipe for personal misery, it's a recipe for public misery, because if your approach to life is, I'm not a good person unless I'm tearing things down because things are inherently bad, my teacher told me so, you're going to tear down a lot of good without even realizing it, without recognizing it as the good. So just something I wanted to throw out there. I appreciate any comments you might make to this. I think this should be an ongoing discussion. I will probably bring it up again. We are going to be fighting this nihilism for a long, long time. And it's something I want you to start thinking about as parents, because this is what they're doing with your kids. They are dismantling without telling your kids what is. You have kids who have no idea how things actually work now or how they worked in the past, being told it's all bad relative to nothing. They have nothing to compare it to. And that's tragic. So if you like this video, I hope you will comment, like, and subscribe, and click the notification bell to be notified when I make more videos. And that's the video.